Well, the war started when I was a kid of 5 years old. It's obviously war is a horrific thing, shortage of food, bombing going on, you don't know what is happening, planes going overhead. And in about 42, I think, 41, 42, they started chasing the Jewish people. And my father actually went to Germany by the look of things to help in the factories, which was bloody stupid, and he went straight on to Auschwitz and he was killed. Life for Jewish people was getting very, very hard. They had to hand in all gold and all the money till they were allowed to keep, I think, equivalent to about $250 or something. And they started rounding up Jewish people all over the place. And actually, there were signs everywhere, Jews not to walk on this side of the street, not to go into parks, not to go to school. But they used to come at 3 in the morning or something, rounded up, closed up the neighborhood and dragged you out of bed. Gave you a few minutes to get ready and off you went. Quite a few people, I guess, went also voluntary. They thought, all right, I've got nothing to fear. And there was actually a Dutch concentration camp called Westerbork. And that was a type of Auschwitz transfer camp. It was just as horrendous, except you weren't killed there. And then they moved on to Germany, and nobody had any idea what actually happened. So I gathered that my mother must have gone into hiding and found people for my brother and for me. Probably, I suspect, the resistance movement, the underground movement. But I don't think she found anybody for herself, unfortunately, and she was killed after that as well. She was taken away. When they started taking the Jews away, the whole of Amsterdam went on strike. Schools closed, hospitals closed, the trains didn't run, the trams stopped, the buses stopped, banks closed. Out of protest to taking the Jews away, yeah, which is pretty, very, very sweet, very kind actually. It seems I was taken by a nurse, and a lady who took me to what I call a go-between, a man who was the head of the resistance. This nurse lady took a hell of a chance, and also the family that I stayed with eventually. If you get found out, there's no questions asked, you're just being shot. But anyway, so this nurse, they took my glasses off. And then I often talk to school kids, and I often take my glasses off and said, well, can you tell a little 7 years old, take your glasses off, and he's got to see the environment. And not only that, they changed my name. My name, I think, has some Jewish implication, maybe, Jozef Vissel. And they made it Joop Jan Visser, as in fisherman, which was a very Dutch name. And Jan, like here, was John. Everybody was called Jan in Holland in those days. So they made it a very ordinary name. I must have gone then to the other family, which was a few kilometers away into the country. And that's where I actually stayed. I called these people aunt and uncle. They had a boy 2 years older than me as well. And while I was there was 2 more children born, a boy and a girl. And as I said, the chance they took was just quite unbelievable. And I often wondered whether I would do that, putting my family at risk. But I don't know, I may be wrong, but I think they were a much more idealistic generation than we. This wonderful man, uncle, wrote me a letter about 9 years after the war, when I was older, to explain a few bits. And they're actually very interesting what he had to say. I think it's rather relevant, I guess, even for all of us. And when you came to us as a little boy, you probably did not know why or what for. Of course I didn't know, but we knew better. And when the first request came to take you into our home, it was the gentleman's plan to hide you in a darkened room, the living room, and they wanted, if there was any noise, any danger, go into the wardrobe. I let the gentleman know that we would be very pleased to take you into our family, but on the condition that you are free. Free to do as you like. Free to go to school, free to walk around, and free to go to school with our son Geert, just like other children. And this is when I started realizing the implication of letting this little kid loose, who could open his mouth and betray the whole ruddy lot of them. And so you stayed with us, And we often asked ourselves, what was the difference between me and our son Geert, an oldest boy. Both, this is rather nice, both in bed at night, innocent children, and both naughty boys in the day. So I often said to the school children, I was naughty too, you know. We tried to be a good father and mother towards you, even though the dangers that brought with them. So they were fully aware of the dangers. And so we had a double responsibility. Obviously they had to worry about me, had to worry about his family. And there's one other little bit that is rather nice, and I particularly use that with the school children that I talk to. And it says here, and what does it matter? Whether we're white, brown or black, whether we're Jew or Christian. Everybody in this world has a duty, and that duty is too difficult to translate, but to be civilized and decent towards other people. Kids seem to be fairly impressed with it all, and frankly I am too. I keep on asking myself, and I'm asking you actually, and anybody, would you take a chance like that? I was one day walking around, and again as a kid, I vaguely remember there was wheat fields all around the little village, and wheat nowadays was very high, it's very low now as a matter of fact. And the Germans were shooting with their machine guns, they were shooting into the fields, and then later on I found out that they got hold of these boys, but they ran away and managed to get away, and they managed to get away from it. Interestingly, recently I found out that the local reverend was involved with it all as well. And apparently they had the organ in the church, probably these boys maybe, and maybe people like Holocaust survivors, at night they had a ladder, and they climbed behind the organ, they climbed up the ladder to the roof, and then they slept in the roof of the church, and then and dragged the ladder up, a little single ladder, and then the following day they came down again, and the locals got them food. It's just incredible, but you know, for the local reverend to be involved in all that as well. Funny enough, I think almost after the war, my life was actually harder than in the war, funny enough. Having said that, it was still awful. I remember bombs, big cannon called Big Bertha, for instance, was in the distance, and you could hear these bombs going over. After the war, I lived with an aunt for a short while. It seems to have been a disaster. I went to another aunt, which was even worse. I was in the red light district of Amsterdam. And I stayed in this little alleyway with these people, which was very kind to take me. It was an uncle of mine, apparently. And he had a German wife. And he survived because of his wife, because he was hidden in the house, and if Germans came to the door, she started yelling at them in German. Said, "What do you think I am? I don't want those bloody Jews around me." She was a Christian lady, as a matter of fact, and he was Jewish, of course. So he was yelling, and so the Germans then backed off and went away, and that's how he survived. But anyway, so they took me in after the war, and then they decided that I was going to an orphanage, a Jewish orphanage, a boys' home, which actually was a pretty good life. The people, teachers, they're trying very hard. I stayed there for I think about 8 years. I then decided to go to Israel, where I met my wife. My brother, I don't even know, he was only 5, poor bugger. And most of my family were killed, but my brother survived, but died at about 40, 45 years of age. I lost contact with him, which is actually, after all that, is very sad. And how he died, I don't quite know. It must have been pretty traumatic. A little fellow that, you know, and 7 is young enough. About 10, 11 years ago, I decided to join a group called Courage to Care, where we talk to school children. We talk about bullying, we show them a film, we try to stop the bullying. The Germans were bullies. And let's face it, soldiers, Hitler was a blooming bully. Bullying is awful, and it's used a lot in schools. First we show them a film of bullying in the playground, just to show them some of the horrors of war and what bullying, what it entails. And then they come to what we call Holocaust survivors, a person like me, and I tell my story, how these people had the courage to care to save my life. I get some very good questions from these little kids. 10, 11, 12, incredible. Oh, we get little notes. I'm not going to bully my sister anymore. I thought that was so wonderful. I keep on using that one. It's lovely. Yes, that they all feel sorry for me, which is, I get a bit cranky about that. I don't want any sorry, but we get very good reports now actually from school teachers and masters, and galleries generally seem to be very pleased. It's been a wonderful life actually. As I said, it's a great country, Australia, to be in. I've been very fortunate to come here, but that's another story. So that's about enough, I think.